Hello folks, this is Steve AB4 Nothing in this episode is a promotion, but in a certain way it's a memorial. And it's a bit of reminiscing because there's a connection to my past. So this is the Times of Israel online newspaper website. And as I was scrolling down today, the 30th of December 2024, I came across something that caught my eye. In memoriam, 18 prominent Jews who died in 2024. And I actually recognize a couple of faces. One of them, at least most of you would too. Some are Israeli and some are diaspora. So as I was scrolling down looking at who the individuals were, movie actor, comedian, I came to a name. Well, there's Dr. Ruth. She's a Holocaust survivor. She was in the Israeli army a long time ago. But the one that I stopped at was this one here. Fania Brantsovsky. Fania Brantsovsky. Fania Brantsovsky was the last surviving member of the Jewish underground in the Vilna ghetto. That's in Lithuania. And a keeper of the flame of the city's once glorious Yiddish past. Brantsovsky escaped the ghetto in 1942 and fought against the Nazis in the forest, and their local collaborators in the Lubninsky forest with a group of Jewish partisans under the command of Abba Kovner. I know who Kovner was. I met him in 1968 on Kibbutz Ein HaChoresh. In the years after the war, she became a lifetime advocate for the memory of the Lithuanian Jews. The first ghetto destruction, they murdered 40,000. Then they used the empty ghetto to fill up with the train loads from other places before they disposed of them. In the memory of the Lithuanian Jewry and their Yiddish language, she died on September 22nd at age 102. In a certain way, she looks familiar. Looking at her there and thinking back, I wonder if I might have met her on Kibbutz Ein HaChoresh, as a visitor maybe. I always felt proud to be Jewish despite what we experienced in the Holocaust. Fania was interned in the Vilnius ghetto with her family. On the day the ghetto was liquidated, when they murdered them all. She escaped to the partisan forts in the Rudniki forest. The escape was through the sewer system to get outside of the walled portion of the city. After the war, she married fellow partisan Micha Brantsovsky. She currently works as a librarian in the Vilnius Yiddish Institute. This is written before she's passed. And helps camp and ghetto survivors at the Jewish Community Center. She actively perpetuates the memory of those who perished through tours of the Jewish Vilna and other partisan forts. She guides them through the old ghetto and also where they were in the forest. And these are pictures of within the ghetto. Dugouts in the forest. You can see the wood log construction. Fania Brantsovsky, born in 1922, who lost her entire family in the Holocaust, escaped the Vilna ghetto several moments before it was encircled by police preparing for the final liquidation, mass murder, on 23 September 1943. Together with another person who passed in 2012, she made it to this underground anti-Nazi partisan fort that was home to the fighters aligned with the Soviet partisans. Now, the person I mentioned is Abba Kovner, and one characteristic of him was his group was specifically independent and free of Soviet control. She most likely was with a different partisan group that was under direct Red Army control. The precise number of inhabitants varied with newcomers and deaths in battle. Women fought? Fania remembers at one time 99 of 101 were Jewish Vilna ghetto escapees in this place, and another time 101 out of 107. An underground bunker like this in the picture until the fall of Nazi rule in July 1944. It mentioned Abba Kovner. Now we're going to switch to my connection, how I'm connected to her indirectly. This is a book, I have it, published in 2001. It's called The Avengers. It was written by a relative, an American relative, of the gal that's right there on the far right of this picture. He is Abba Kovner. He was the leader. He was a poet and a teacher. That's Rushka. I knew her. I knew her. Everybody on Ein HaChoresh knew her. She ran the Refit, the cow pens, and she was a political activist. I worked for a week with him, setting the tables in the eating dining hall, because the communal dining hall, everybody took a turn washing the dishes or setting the tables. Community dining hall. She became a the one on the far right became his wife. They married. She became a child psychologist in Israel after the war of independence, once there was safety. That's the picture, the photograph. What is the day? It's the day when the Soviet army and all of the partisans re-entered and recaptured Vilna, driving the Nazis out finally as the Nazis retreated back across Poland to be defeated finally. You notice that everybody has a Sten gun, a submachine gun. It's not decoration. You notice that the gals are wearing uniforms. Who knows where they got them? It's wartime. They're living in the forest. The Nazis are hunting for them. And they're doing things to the Nazis, including Fania. What I say about these include Fania. The FPO continually pleaded with the Jews of Vilna to join the partisans in a popular uprising. The partisans were led by, initially inside of the ghetto, Kovner. Realizing Vilna's Jews would not rise up before the final destruction of the ghetto, Kovner sent the majority of the partisans, about 300 of them, through the sewers to escape into the forest. Those who stayed, including Kovner, took up positions in abandoned buildings and briefly fought the Germans before escaping the destruction. Kovner led the remaining partisans to the Runiki forest, where the Avengers earned a distinguished record of destroying over 180 miles of train tracks. The Nazis had driven all the way to the outskirts of Moscow. The supply trains for that army went across northern Poland through Lithuania toward Moscow, past Vilna. The gal at the far right, who eventually became the wife of Kovner, because she could pass and didn't look particularly Jewish, so if she got outside of the ghetto wall into the main city, somebody would say, "What are you doing out here, Jew? Arrest that one." She could take a rucksack with explosives and goes to the railroad and plant the explosives on the train tracks to blow up Nazi trains. Destroying over 180 miles of train tracks, 5 bridges, 40 enemy train cars, killing 212 enemy soldiers, and rescuing at least 71 Jews. Kovner was convinced the Jews could gain self-respect through fighting, and the Jews must fight as Jews, independent of Soviet control. He refused to be absorbed into the Lithuanian or Russian partisan groups. So it's right there. But I knew that back then. 1967, 1968. And then again in 1971, November, when I worked with Kovner in a week-long shift setting the evening night tables. So she died recently. She's the last of the Vilna ghetto partisan resistance group. Bless her. Bless her memory. If I didn't know her directly, I knew people just like her. Steve A. Beforio, just remembering, saying see you in 73.